important man here, Mr. Jack Kelly, is an American gentleman who went to a trade show and Klark Teknik's products caught his eye. He basically contacted them and said, look, I can sell a lot of this gear, I think it's brilliant. And as a result, he set up the first New York office in 1980. It was a particularly wise move because he basically managed to generate a third of the revenue just to America. So, you know, if you've got a good quality product, it will catch people's eye. This is the DN360. These are sort of the most revered products. This is still in production to this day after being released in 1984. They're still making them in China, in our factory over there. The DN780 was a digital delay. It was slightly late to market, but it's still technically the first one that was released. These sell for mega money if you ever see them on eBay. I interviewed Terry Clarke and he said, how much are they going for? I've got one. And the DN60 real-time analyzer, which you can see here, still in working order, is with the microphone that's plugged in on the front. As they went public, they went on to the stock exchange, became a publicly listed company. People think that they bought DDA. DDA were a console manufacturer from Hounslow. They didn't actually buy them, they merged together, so they pulled their resources together. And DDA continued up until 1997, before everything moved to Kidderminster. Interestingly, Terry said that when they were put on the stock market, everybody thought DDA was where the money was. And obviously you're not allowed to reveal any information, but Terry was saying to people who are interested, you know, we're actually the people making all the money. And they didn't believe him until they bought the company and looked at the accounts and they said, DDA aren't making any money. He said, well, I did tell you, but you didn't want to know. But the most important acquisition was obviously a company called Midas, and as we can see, we've got a little Midas analog console there. They were a struggling company in London, and Terry just said they got a fantastic product, they were in trouble, I knew we needed to buy them. But I haven't got time to go into Midas, that's another story for another day, I'm afraid. This is the most interesting one. Klark Marine. I actually found a folder. One person said there was actually a yacht on site at one point. When I spoke to Terry, he refuted that. He said, no, there was never one. The story is that Phil, his brother, had bought a yacht for himself, and they'd looked into radar technology, wiring, any kind of parts of the market that they could exploit and market. But they were completely out of their depth, so it was abandoned, and I think yacht is now in Brazil, where Phil resides, and I don't think there's much more you can say really about Klark Marine, but it is quite an unusual angle on the story. Briefly, they went into speaker design. A gentleman called, I forget his name, sorry, no, but he ran Clearwater Design. Had got these speakers and was obviously interested in getting Terry and Phil to get their backing. So basically, these were produced in Kidderminster. These were award-winning speakers. Still, to this day, we have people phoning up saying, have you got a part for that? And this is like 30 years ago. They're still in some studios around the world. But again, it became another distraction. So they abandoned the speakers, even though they'd been quite successful at them, at the first attempt. This is a great photo of Gaston receiving the Queen's Award, which Klark Teknik won twice. And on one occasion, I think Phil and his wife went to meet Margaret Thatcher, if you remember her, Prime Minister. And Terry, the following year, got to meet the Queen, so I don't know who got the best deal out of that, but there you go. So we draw to the end. Basically, being on the market, from what Terry was saying, you had some quite horrible people in the background leaning on you all the time. They were under tremendous pressure to deliver. And Terry said that the business was going up and up and up and up and up. He had a gut instinct that there's only one way and it's going to go down. And he talked to Phil and said, I think we should sell. I think we should sell up and get out. Phil wasn't very happy about this. This is the only time in their relationship where they had a bit of a disagreement with one another. But the directors actually sided with Terry and they sold up. And he was right, because 6 months later the bottom fell out of the economy and the recession began. So he timed it perfectly. Terry went on to other things. He formed a company called XTA, which I believe are in Starport, and he's also involved with MC Square, his own company. Philip, on the other hand, I think got on his yacht, went to Rio, and hasn't been seen since. But he's still he's married a very, very young and very attractive waitress, I think. And that was the last. That's all we know about him. So I think he did all right, to be honest. So what happened next? Well, Klark Teknik became a bit of a hot potato for a while. It was shipped around through different people, different acquisitions. Mark IV owned us immediately after the Clark brothers left. Then EVI Audio, then Telex Communications, and Bosch basically bought Telex because they wanted their business, and they accidentally acquired. So you've basically got Bosch, who were making washing machines and starter motors, suddenly end up with a pro audio company. Like, what do we do with these guys? You know. So they persevered with us, and they were very nice, Bosch, but it wasn't a business that they would be interested in. So they sold us to a gentleman called Uli Beringer. And he'd just begun he got a very successful pro audio company. He'd already bought a guitar amplifier called Bagheera, and Music Tribe became his umbrella company that all these other brands were acquired underneath, and Midas and Klark Teknik being two of them. This caused eyebrows to be raised in the industry, because if you speak to somebody about Beringer, people can be very snobbish about the equipment because it's entry level, it's user, you know, your guitar player in his bedroom. And the acquisition, were it's entry level, it's basic, it's cheap, quality will be ruined. All the forums are saying stuff like this. But there's a ginormous factory in China that he owns, and Klark Teknik has had, and Midas combined, at least 20 million thrown at it in development. This kind of facility is the kind of thing that the Clark brothers could only have dreamt of. I visited this in March. It is a phenomenal site, and it's massive, a massive undertaking. So to be a part of this meant that Klark Teknik had a future, because without it, it probably wouldn't have had one. So the future of our products, currently, Klark Teknik sort of largely based in networking solutions. Also, the DN 780 reverb features as a virtual unit on the Midas Consoles. But a strange thing happened. People started demanding physical units again, which it's a bit like with vinyl coming back. Who saw that coming, you know? So now these new units have been produced, sort of retro units of based on sort of 60s style equipment, and a couple of those are actually here in the middle. They look ancient, but they're actually new, with the big cooker dials, you know. And also on the synthesizer that's here, which I think is you'll see that it says powered by Klark Teknik. So the future's looking pretty bright. That was a whistle-stop tour. Thank you for listening. Is there any questions? Thank you.